Guys, and welcome to a new video. Today I want to give you guys an update on my Widowhail Sparkmage character, which is a Widowhail bow spark character with Archmage stacking int and mana to get all of its damage and defense. And this is played on a Gemling, but you could play this on different ascendancies as well, but I think the Gemling for especially in stacking and so on and so forth is quite nice because of the enhanced effectiveness, giving you more bonus from intelligence, making this a very nice character overall for almost any kind of build, especially when it comes to stat stacking. What separates this build from the other Spark builds, mainly Stormweaver or Sparkweaver builds, is the amount of projectile speeds and the way this character gets its damage from. So I'm currently sitting on like 119,000 DPS tooltip, if this is not bugged still. Now it's 119,000 with 467 projectile speed, 71 pen, 212 rarity, and this is basically how it looks like if you run so freaking much projectile speed on your Spark, and my Spark is level 35 as of right now. But if I go refund these two passives and actually get the plus level of skills, my Spark is sitting at 133,000 and level 36. And this is like the big difference on this build compared to the Stormweaver builds, because even the top high-end Stormweaver builds have a Spark on like level 27, 28 or something like that, and they have a lot more damage modifiers that I completely skipped as of right now based on the gearing, because I don't have any form of like cast speed on my stuff. I don't have crit damage or anything because this is a non-crit build. All I'm doing here is fixing my resistance, trying to get mana, and that's basically it. And just for the pure amount of like levels of Spark, I get quite a bit of damage, and this is in a Magic Find mapping setup. This is with mobility, with acceleration, with inspiration to lower the mana cost, so I could boost this number up heavily if I would consider that build, if I want to make a bosser out of that. And mapping showcase, I'm just gonna let some of the mapping gameplay that I uploaded yesterday show in the background, because in the end of the day, if you want to see a full gameplay here, right, you go to my channel. I uploaded a video yesterday where there's like, I don't know, like 10 minutes of gameplay of this exact build and how it looks like in a breach scenario and so on and so forth. But today I want to talk about the changes that I've done to the build, as well as what I learned or figured out. On top of that, what would be the even better version, or let's say you have a lot of currency and you want to go with this build even further. And the first thing that I want you to understand is the interaction with Quiver Effect, because this is what the build is based around, and this is how I get so much damage. Because if I just unequip my Quiver, I'm going down to 24 levels of Spark, and then unequip the amulet, I'm on 21. So my gem is level 20, I get +1 level from my implanted gems over here, and the rest of the levels is coming from the amulet and the Quiver, specifically the Quiver. And this is something where I'm always haggling a little bit. Like, do you just make a planner and give this to the people, or the way I see it is I want you to understand how this build works so you can replicate it with more currency, with less currency, based on how much you have, because you understand how the build works, you know what items you need, instead of just opening the planner and just copy every single item and then be mad because you missed some crucial aspects of the build, right? So take this video as like a learning thing, and then you can make your own character with less currency and probably even more effective. Good. Let's start with the Widowhail. What is the core about this build? So a Widowhail bow is basically just giving you increased bonuses gained from equipped Quiver. And this is basically why we are using a stat stick Quiver that we boost up tremendously with our gear, with our stats and skill tree and jewels and so on and so forth. So the way this works is this Quiver gives me projectile speed and projectile skills mainly, right? Then we have some mana gain on kill and dexterity. And what this allows me to do with stacking effect of Quiver, I've listed down here. My Quiver currently gives me +12 to Spark, 271% projectile speed, 157 mana on kill, and about 78 dexterity, and that's why I'm sitting on over 100 dexterity while not even investing a single point in dexterity. So how does this even work? So basically you have your Widowhail, and I have this like noted down over here with the different breakpoints. The breakpoint is 50%, We don't care about the speed, the mana on kill. All we care about is this one over here. How do I get more levels on my quiver, basically, or for Spark? And the way this works is my quiver has +2 to all projectile skills, right? So in order to get +3, I need 50%. So if we take this by 1.5, which is a 50% increase, we get to 3. If I would say I have 1.4, then it's 2.8, and the way in PoE it works is forget about the decimal numbers, right? It is still going to be 2. So even if you have 40% quiver effect, you're not going to get an additional level. You need to hit this 50% breakpoints. So having, let's say, 140% versus 110% is pretty much the same in terms of levels. You're not going to get the breakpoint. It will give you a little bit more speed, a little bit more dex or whatever, because these numeric numbers are just bigger, but we care about the base level of Spark, and this is how we scale it. So every 50% we're going to get an extra level. So my Widowhail has currently 294%. There would be no point of buying one for like 305% for like 100 divines or something, because I'm not going to meet the threshold. So you have to add all of the sources of quiver effect coming from your jewels, from your tree, your Widowhail and stuff, and then you want to hit like this even number or a 50% of that. So I'm having my 294 Widowhail over here. And then there is here on the skill tree, we have this master fletching cluster over here. It gives you 10% quiver effect, 10%, double 15 on the side nodes, and 30% on the node over here, which gives you a total of 80% quiver effect. So now just with those two numbers, basically, we do have a total of 374 quiver effect. That means that 24% I'm over, or I'm 26 quiver effect lower than the next breakpoint. So now I could also just say, hey, I could take like a 270 Widowhail, and this would be as strong as my 294 because I'm not hitting the breakpoint. So now we have jewels, and jewels do have a very nice mod over here, which says the last line, increased bonus gained from equipped quiver. And I do run a lot of these. I think like 1, 2, 3, then we have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times I'm running a jewel with this exact modifier, and I wrote this down here. These are just the basic rolls. They can roll from 5 to 15, so I divined those to be at least 13. And when you summarize all of these, I'm getting 130% quiver effect from my jewels. So if I'm add this together, the passive tree, my jewels, and the Widowhail, I'm getting to 504% quiver effect, which end up being like 12 levels to skill, 271% projectile speed, we get 157 mana on kill, and 78 dexterity, while the dexterity is not really necessary. It's just like, it is on my quiver, so that's why I added it up, right? And we're not going to talk about the flat damage for attacks if we are playing a spellcaster. So I think this is pretty much end gear or end kind of like values that you can reach without Adorned. I think Adorned is the only way to get this to like 600, 700% to get even more out of that, but it costs quite a lot of currency. Why would I say Adorned? So basically with these jewels, the problem is the effect of quiver here is basically located on a green jewel. So all these jewels will be green, and therefore they cannot have cast speed, they cannot have spell damage, they cannot have those kind of like damaging modifiers. So I made like a priority list. I checked like hundreds of jewels, and then I go from like, what is my most important set? What I really need to have is the equipped effect of quiver. What else is there that could be nice? Hey, I'm playing a mapper, I want to have movement speed. So all of my jewels here actually have quiver effect and movement speed, and I divide those up to be at least 2% movement speed and at least 13% quiver effect to reach my breakpoints. But overall, when I have all my jewels in and with some movement speed nodes on the tree, I'm actually getting to an okayish value of 60% movement speed, which is a lot faster than the majority of builds, but I'm a mapping build, you know, I want to be fast at maps to be more effective. And then the next stat that I was looking out for, okay, I said 100% I want to have quiver effect, then I want to have movement speed, so what else is there? And I find like Lightning Pen is like the next best in the line, because when I stack lightning penetration on my jewels, I don't need to invest into lightning damage on my tree, which means that I don't need to invest so many skill points, so I can get more mana, more movement speed, or any other stat. that might be useful. So that's why all of my 9 jewels all have the same generic modifiers: movement speed, quiver effect, and lightning pen. These gonna get expensive as soon as this video goes live and I talk about these things, and people are like, oh, I need this one here, okay, let me quickly buy them. But there's not gonna be a lot of on them on the market. But what you need is the quiver effect. The rest is optional and doesn't need to be there. And that's why I say, if you would play this with an Adorned, especially since the value of the equipped quiver goes from 5 to 15, you're gonna get a good amount of value out of your Adorned. Just as, let's say the same thing with Adorned, you know, we have like, let's say 2% movement speed and 15% quiver effect, and we run like a 75% Adorned, right? The problem here is if I multiply this now by 1.75, because 1 is the base value and 75 is increased, I'm getting to 3.5, means I'm still only gonna get 3% movement speed out of it, right? If it's going 50%, it would be exactly 3, but on the other side here is 1.5, we're gonna get 23 projectile quiver effect, right? So if you have movement speed on the jewels on a blue base, you need 50% Adorned to get 3, and 90% will be as good as the 50% in terms of movement speed, right? And you need 100% Adorned, which currently goes for a mirror or something, to actually turn the 2 movement speed into 4. But since the roll range from the quiver is a lot higher, you're gonna benefit out of like a 60% Adorned, a 70% Adorned, and so on and so forth, based on how much currency you have. But this stat would allow me, let's just assume, okay, because let's turn around a little bit or go back. What do I need to invest here in my current state to reach the next breakpoint, which would be 550? You know, I could add 2 perfectly rolled jewels and maybe a 305% Widowhail, and I'm still gonna be below. And then I need to divine my other jewels, like 2 or 3 of those, or maybe all of those, to reach the 550. And just this combination, adding 2 jewel slots plus a 305 Widowhail plus divining all my jewels to have perfect values, we talk about 200-300 divines investment to get the next breakpoint going. So for me, that's why I said, for me, the 500% was realistic to reach, even with divining my jewels. But now I'm locked in here, right? 500%, it's not going to be more. I should rather spend my divines on upgrading the rest of my gear to get more mana, to get more damage, and so on and so forth. If you would play this with Adorned, you know, let's say Adorned, and we get like, instead of 15%, let's say you have like an 85% Adorned, right? So this is 1.85, 15 times 1.85, we would get 27% or 27 quiver effect on each of my jewels. And if I add this one up, that means 249. If I add this now to my Widowhail that I currently have equipped, plus obviously the points from the tree, I'm already on 623, which is like more than like 2 skill levels more than what I currently have. And what do I lose? I lose a bit of penetration, for example, or movement speed. But the main factor here is the effect of quiver. So if you play this with Adorned and trying to get like these jewels going, in the best case scenario, maybe like quiver effect and penetration corrupted, or I don't know which of these are prefix and suffix. I don't really want to like think about it, but max resistance and quiver effect, like penetration, as I said, maybe movement speed, chance to shock, anything that's somewhat valuable, even if it's not valuable. If you have quiver effect and attack speed, what doesn't do anything for my build, just if you corrupt that and maybe get like an intelligence implicit, because this can be on a corrupted jewel, you're gonna get more base stats and a lot more out of your quiver and base stats or base skills, and therefore a lot more damage. So Adorned is definitely the way to go, but if you have that currency. But I really want you to understand how this quiver effect works and how do we get so much damage out of it. And currently on level 36, so with Adorned, level 40 Spark is definitely in reach. Good, gearing part. So now we talked about the Widowhail and the quiver effect. What about cast on shock and the spirit? So I think a lot of builds have problems with spirit gain to activate certain auras and stuff. I personally, after testing, I think all of that is completely unnecessary. if I would get another Widowhail and stuff, I would go one single soul core for the spirit just so I can activate clarity, and that's about it. I don't think that it's worth going for cast on shock, because with lightning conduit it deals more damage per effect of shock on the enemy. While Sparkweaver, for example, has like 90% shocks and like 2 stacks of that, Lightning Conduit will deal insane amounts of damage, but I don't invest into shock effectiveness or magnitude, so my shocks are 20%, maybe 25 or something, so the Lightning Conduit will not do a lot of damage. So instead, I would go 1 core for 15 spirit with clarity, so I can activate clarity, because this is like really nice to have. But other auras just don't benefit us. No Herald, no Herald of Ice, Thunder, whatever, Ash, all attack-based stuff. Grim Feast doesn't matter, I'm not running Energy Shield. All the other Wind Dancer, for example, doesn't do anything, I'm not running Evasion whatsoever, so there is no auras seemingly that I can take other than Archmage and Clarity. So what does that mean is I would probably go for, I don't know what other soul cards are there, maybe like percent mana on kill or chance to shock might also be an option, but that would also mean that on my amulet I would not take an amulet with spirit, which makes the amulet a lot cheaper, and I could use more or better stats for that. Projectile skills, mana regen, cast speed, attributes, intelligence, flat mana, anything that is more useful than, for example, 46 spirit, because I don't think that the cast on shock is doing actually that much for this specific character. Okay, so gear. Still the same gear, I think, as I had on the previous iteration. I think the most that changed are all the jewels that I bought, but I could still fish out more rarity, and this is now the kind of like split that we have to decide, right? Do we want to map or do we want a boss, right? Because if I do bosses, I don't need any rarity. Maybe it has some practical issues, but at the end of the day, every rarity modifier gives me less mana, mainly because what are my stats on items, for example? We have, or we want to have, as our suffixes, intelligence, resistance. And if I only have one resistance, I'd rather have, for example, all attributes, because all attributes also equals more intelligence. When it comes to the prefix, we have, for the boots, for example, we have 1 slot for mana, we have 1 slot for movement speed. That means we have 1 slot open, the 3rd prefix, for an increased energy shield. Means if I, or at least rarity in that case, right? If I would go away with rarity on all my prefix and get extra energy shield that equals more mana because of our keystone here with Eldritch Battery, that would also mean that I'm dealing more damage. So if I would do a bossing build, I would skip all the rarity on all these pieces and get more energy shield, more intelligence, more mana whatsoever, and I would probably end up having like maybe 10 or 12,000 mana, which would easily get my Spark to like deal like triple amounts of damage, for example, right? And cast speed on top of that, all these like useful boss things. But since I'm mainly mapping, and I do mapping like 98% of the time, I decided I want to go rarity. So all my items are basically mana, energy shield, rarity, intelligence, resistance. And then if you need another resistance or all attributes or another rarity stat, right? Rarity is insanely strong right now. I even picked up rarity on my soul cores over here running 212%, but there is rarity missing on my boots, there is rarity missing on my helmet, so this would be the next 2 upgrades that I would do on this build. And all these like items, and I want to make this clear, all of these items follow the same strict rule. It's mana, intelligence, energy shield, and resistance. Get you capped, and then move forward and try to add as much rarity as you can while having all the other modifiers basically fixed, like resistance and stuff. So yeah, that will be this one. On boots, obviously, we want to have 35% movement speed, because what is the point of investing heavily into movement speed on skill points, like here 2%, if you are rocking like some 25% movement speed boots, right? So for me personally, 35 is kind of like a must-have, and then as much other stats that I can get. And every item here is following the same rule. Mana, intelligence, because intelligence is basically also mana. And it's like the thing. For example, my gloves actually have 3 mana modifiers on here. So we have the flat mana with 150. We have 29 intelligence, which intelligence gives mana, and based on the Gemling, I get 4 mana per intelligence. So these like 29 intelligence actually gives me 29 intelligence times 4 is 116 mana on top of that, right? So we have 154 base plus the 160 plus the 119 energy shield that gets converted into mana. So my gloves effectively give me 389 mana instead of 150, what it says it does, right? So keep that in mind. And as I said, if we skip rarity and get more energy shield on our items, we also gain more mana, and more mana means I'm tankier, I'm having more damage, and so on. Good. Based on our skills, as I already explained in the last video, Mana Tempest is gone. In the best case scenario, you want to probably have a staff in your offhand with Sigil of Power with a weapon swap to get more damage out of it. But as of right now, I just don't freaking need that damage. And as I said, this Caster Shock setup should be gone as well because I don't really need it whatsoever. So this is basically what I'm left with. I have my Spark here with Arcane Tempo, Control Destruction, Inspiration, Acceleration, and Mobility just for the more chill mapping playstyle. Then I have Orb of Storms to decurse my the opponent, basically Font of Mana, Strip Away, Lightning Exposure, and Conduction. Then I have Conductivity with Hasten Curse, Focus Curse, and Magnified Effect. And then we have Archmage with the Lightning Mastery as well as Clarity. And this is basically all you need. You have your one-button playstyle, and when there is a boss, you put down the Orb of Storms and curse the enemy with Conductivity, and then you just hammer away your sparks, and pretty much everything dies. I don't need to have like a 25-button rotation, knowing it's gonna make my character a lot stronger. So obviously, if I put on a Mana Tempest or a weapon swap with Sigil of Power, and I have more curse effect for my Conductivity, maybe even with a weapon swap and different masteries allocated for more curse effect and stuff like that, I know I can do more damage, but I just don't need to. And based on like the mapping that I'm doing, like everything dies before I even see it, so I want to get as much quality of life as possible, which namely is movement speed, for example, projectile speed, so things die even faster, and I don't want to deal with any of the other rest. Good. We talked about gems, the equipment, the Adorned Setup, we talked about the Quiver Effect, which is the most mandatory thing about that. And yeah, this is pretty much it. All the MTX and stuff like that is in the first video. This is just like an update video just to yeah, showcase what I'm working on right now and what is the plans going and moving forward. And that is pretty much it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And today is the 31st of December, so for me, in about 11 hours, there is, you know, Happy New Year, and I wish everybody has just had a wonderful evening. Have a good time. Hope all your dreams and wishes get true in the upcoming year, and I hope your New Year's resolution will be strong, and hopefully you're strong too to actually fulfill all of those. All right, guys, keep strong. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. And see you in the next video as well as in the next year. Peace out.